Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to have a chat about Prismatic Evolutions. There is an assumption that I'm seeing being made by people, which we know for a fact, and I can prove it, and frankly, I'm gonna prove it. In this video, we know for a fact is wrong. Let's have a chat about this. Now, we know that generally speaking, our Prismatic Evolutions, our special set, which is coming, well, it's coming in January, but of course, January's the first wave. There are other waves going through right through to September. But it's basically our equivalent of Japan's Terastal Festival. It is not going to be exactly the same as Japan's Terastal Festival. Now, we're going to talk more about this in a future video, maybe tomorrow, where we really look at everything we do know. But today is about one specific point, and that is the Generations decks. They are not going to be in Prismatic Evolutions. Or to put it another way, the EXs therefrom are not going to be in Prismatic Evolutions. And we can say this with a pretty high degree of certainty, by which I mean we can be absolutely certain. Maybe a couple of them sneak in, but we know that most of them aren't. We know for an absolute fact. And here's the thing, these Generations decks are now out in Japan, but we're still a couple of weeks away from the release of Terastal Festival. So, in theory, we've always been led to believe that release first, get it first, that makes sense. Not going to be the case here. And here's how I know for absolute certain. The Generations decks comprise of 9 decks, 1 per generation. Each of those decks has 2 EXs in. So we can have a look at the front of the box. Each shows 2 Pokemon. They come as an EX. And as an example, the Gen 1 deck has Pikachu and Snorlax on the front, and comes with Pikachu EX and Snorlax EX. And these are brand new, mechanically unique EXs. Most of them aren't great, but they are new and mechanically unique. So if we get all of these, that will make 18 EXs, plus any other EXs we would naturally get from things like Terastal Festival. Well, let's go have a gander at the press release. We have a press release for Prismatic Evolutions, and it tells us very clearly 10 Pokemon EX and 15 Terra Pokemon EX. Well, that's easy. We cannot have all 18 of the EXs from the Generations decks in a set that only has 10 regular EXs. The 15 Terra, for what it's worth, are definitely not the same thing here. All the ones in the Generations decks are regular EXs. We know that we're getting a bunch of Terra EX Evolutions, for instance. There are all 9 of them in Terastal Festival, so things like Umbreon are coming, and they are confirmed. Remember how the surprise box has just the 9 cards, you get one of them at random in a surprise box, printed with the logo of the set? So that confirms, like 100% confirms, all 9 of those are in the set. So we know those 9 Terra before we even get started. So this leads to a couple of pretty important questions. If those EXs aren't in Prismatic Evolutions, then which EXs are? And what's happening to the Generations EXs? Now, in terms of what's happening to them, pass. There's a lot here. It's kind of reminiscent of Japan's Battle Academy. Now, in Japan, the Battle Academy is not the same as the Battle Academy over here. It's a similar kind of thing, but to put it bluntly, Japan goes a lot harder than we do with their Battle Academy. Japan's Battle Academy comes with a lot more EXs. So, just to take a couple of examples. Now, obviously, the EXs in our Battle Academy came from Japan's Battle Academy. So the Armarouge, the Pikachu, the Darkrai, they were in the Battle Academy. They came around as exclusive EXs in our Battle Academy, but that's like half the story. We saw things like Sprigatito came around in the Paldea Adventure chest. Yep, that was a thing. Exclusive promo over in there. The Houndstone came around as an EX box Incidentally, this is why these are all kind of terrible, because they came from the Battle Academy in Japan. They were never supposed to be good. And then we saw like a couple of random others, like Greninja, for instance, just whacked into Stellar Crown. Just popped it in that set. Didn't have anywhere else to put it. Just popped it in a set. So we basically had like a bunch of them being given out in various different places as random promos. And then when we ran out of other places to chuck them, the last few just ended up in Stellar Crown. We could see a similar thing here with these Generations decks. Just putting 18 of these into any set is going to massively bloat the number of EXs. It will really hurt the pull rate of an EX that you particularly want, like how every time you pull one of the other EXs in Stellar Crown, you're kind of sitting there thinking, well, yeah, putting Greninja in Stellar Crown lowered my odds of pulling Terapagos, which is like a legitimately great EX, or Orthworm, which is not that great, but one day it's going to be good and I'm going to be delighted. That might not be true, but a man can dream. So they're likely to be split up. If you were going to whack all 18 of these into one set, it would be an end of year or beginning of the year special catch-up set, whatever. That's generally what we would expect to see. That is not happening. There is a legit question about where these 18 go, and the answer is we don't really know. The likelihood now is that they kind of follow the Battle Academy model, which is some of them get used as promos here and there in random products, and then the last few get chucked into a set. Some of these will probably end up being chucked into a set. We don't really know which ones. Now, in terms of playability, it's not necessarily the biggest deal in the world. Like, Pikachu's got free energy 220 and does 30 to itself. Snorlax does flip 3 coins, 120 for each heads. You know, the kind of thing that's going to potentially wreck a pre-release, but probably not be good in competitive formats. But it doesn't mean they're not extremely cool. Lugia's popular. I know a bunch of Lugia fans. They're going to want Lugia in their deck, or at least in their binder. Because let's face it, Lugia's kind of not good. We've got 140 damage, and you flip a coin until you get tails, and for each head you get to discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Cool. Now, for my money, the best among them is Blaziken. Blaziken has an ability that just says once during your turn, you can attach a basic energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. Cool. It's a bit annoying it's on a stage 2, but that's not a terrible ability. I think it's kind of the best of them. Although I do kind of like Dialga's single energy, 20 damage, draw 1. I don't think that's terrible. And again, in a pre-release, that Dialga could be absolutely beautiful. I've got all of these. They'll be at my house tomorrow. I have ordered all 9 Generations decks. I'm told they'll be delivered to my house tomorrow. I'm good. But people are going to want these for their binder, maybe for their deck. And remember what I keep saying. We don't know which cards are going to be good in the future. We look at cards. My favourite one here was Celebi. When Triumphant came around, Celebi was lauded as by far the worst Pokemon Prime in the set. Triumphant was a great set that was full of great Pokemon Prime. Nobody liked Celebi. Celebi was released in a collection box, and people were legitimately angry because it was a terrible Prime, and why couldn't they have put a good Prime in this box instead? This was a thing. This happened. Celebi was like a $1 or $2 card. Nobody wanted it. Then Mewtwo came out. And overnight, Celebi went from absolute junk trash Pokemon to one of the best cards in the game. Not even kidding. And I'm not saying any of these have the potential of a Celebi, and I know we got a lot more hindsight now than we did back then and all of that, don't care. The fact of the matter is, bad cards become good all the time. It just depends on what other cards come out to support them. So do bear that in mind. When we're looking at these cards and saying, oh, they're trash garbage, they might be, but they might also have a lot of potential that we're missing because they don't have the right partners yet. In terms of what EXs are going to be featured in Generations, it's not as simple as just going, oh, all the ones from Terastal Festival. Because if we look at the kind of ones they've got, It's things like this Roaring Moon. Well, hang on a second. This Roaring Moon was in the Roaring Moon EX box. So why would we get this also printed in a set? That makes no sense. That's not going to happen. Same thing with this Iron Valiant was released in an equivalent box at the same time. It was the future version of it. So there's no way we're getting those EXs in Prismatic Evolutions. It's not happening. We've already had them. And we could keep going. There's a bunch of others. Maybe there's some straight reprints in there. Things like Pecharon and Terapagos have been confirmed for Terrestrial Festival. Japan does a lot more reprints than we do, but we have been more open to it lately. So maybe we could just get some straight reprints of really good EXs. That is in the realm of possibility. Because we need to get 10 EXs. We need 10 EXs in the set. We know we're getting 10 EXs in the set. And all we've seen from the Japanese equivalent set is alternate art reprints and straight reprints. The terrestrial Pokemon, yeah, we got a whole bunch of new ones. Not regular Pokemon, ladies and gentlemen. Not regular Pokemon. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly which ones we have. And maybe it will just be 10 of the ones from Generations. We absolutely cannot discount that. I am not saying none of the EXs from Generations are going to be in Prismatic Evolutions. I'm not saying that. I can't say that. That would be ridiculous. I am saying at absolute most we get 10 out of 18. And even that seems unlikely. As a side note, we know we're getting reprints of stuff like Gold and Go, for instance, but that might be a regular EX, but it's not actually a regular EX. It's a special illustration rare. We know we're getting 32 of those. That is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about regular, non-terrestrial Pokemon. There are 10 coming in the set. Maybe some of them originate in Generations. Maybe all of them do. Maybe there's some straight reprints in there. There might be some we've just not seen yet. The whole set of Terrestrial Festival has yet to be revealed. Maybe there's something more coming in the future. I don't know. For now, I've told you what I do know, so now it's over to you guys. Tell me which of these you're excited about. Tell me which of these you want to be seeing. Tell me your prediction for where they're coming around. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Quentin Journeau, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.